All right. So, hello, everybody. My name is Dana Delmer. I'm a title rep with ClearMark Title, based right here in Long Beach. And today I have an awesome and special guest with us. Her name is Dino Champagne. Can't forget the name. And she's the Vice President and Division Manager with Asset Preservation, which is a 1031 exchange company. And she is no newbie. She's been with this company for 18 years. And I've known her since I first started in title insurance 3 years ago. She's always been very helpful, had a ton of knowledge, and impressed all the realtors that I've introduced, to her. So thank you for joining us, Dino.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course. We're going to pick her brain today, and I'm going to interview Dino and ask her 3 questions that I've been getting, from realtors lately. So the first question we have is, we all know we're in this pandemic right now. So how has this pandemic affected 1031 exchanges, Dino?
Okay, so what's been interesting is when we started 2020, it was continuing from the momentum from the 2019, and as we went through and got into mid-March, things sort of got turned upside down. When we had this whole COVID situation that came in, and then ultimately when the president declared a national emergency, everything in the 1031 world people started tapping on the brakes to slow things down, to figure out what they were going to be doing next. So what I've noticed is that when the pandemic, when this whole thing started and people were really engaged with what was going on, the momentum of the transactions were still flowing smoothly because they were already in place. And what's been interesting is to see how people are sort of like putting a pause a little bit on whether they want to sell right now because they're not sure what they're going to buy, and having to deal with all the time frames for the exchange, and then other issues that may be coming up in the essence of, will I be able to get financing? So a lot of different things. So it's definitely, the brakes have been tapped, and the volume has slowed down a little bit because of this. We'll wait and see what happens. But what's interesting is I really haven't seen much in the way of price reductions. Okay, it's been relatively minimal, and all the events that I listen to via Zoom, like everybody else these days, you're not hearing major price reductions. Now, that doesn't mean that eventually it's not going to come, but it's not really here now. So that's what we're seeing, is the market slow down a little bit, still moving along. We'll see what the month of May and June and July bring us.
Yeah, well, that's great that prices have remained, still elevated, and, maybe a little bit slow down, same with us, but not too much. So, all right, awesome. Well, thank you for that. And then our second question is, do you have any tips for people who do 1031 exchanges, which I know you do. So.
Yes, the biggest tip that I have for anybody doing a 1031, whether it's in a normal market or whether in the conditions that we're dealing with today, is to make sure you have a plan and know what you're going to be doing going forward. What I've noticed in this situation that we're dealing with right now is because of what's happening with the rents and unemployment and the catastrophic. So you have tenants, if it's a residential income, they may be losing their jobs. There's moratoriums on rent increases. There's moratoriums on evictions and such like that. So when you're an investor trying to do an exchange, you're selling an investment property and you're going to be buying an investment property. And so they're a little bit concerned about what's going to happen in the rental market. A couple of transactions that I've been seeing where people are actually doing what's called a partial exchange, where they're pulling out some cash to hold on the sidelines. They still want to go forward with the exchange. They still feel it's a good thing for them to do. So what they're doing is keeping some cash. And then that way they have some sufficient reserves in the event that there's some issues with the tenants that they have. But the main thing, I think, in any exchange is that you have communication, you understand what your plan is going to be, know what you're going to be dealing with when it comes to lending, because that's another component, and it's a major issue today. Will the lenders be there to lend on this particular property? So planning. So know what your financing is going to look like, decide if you're going to want to keep some funds for reserves, and then that helps you to get through this particular process. So that would be kind of my little tip in today's environment.
That's a huge tip. And I've actually been hearing that from some lenders too, that they've been seeing a trend where people are trying to keep some more money in their bank, because we're seeing a lot of people trying to refinance to get cash to purchase, and they can't get that money out right now. So that's a great tip for when you're doing your 1031 exchanges, is to keep a little bit more money in your pocket in your bank. So thank you for that tip. That was good. And then our last question is going to be about extensions. So I've been hearing about extensions being expanded and elongated during this pandemic, but I don't know a lot about it. So can you touch base on that, Dina?
I sure can. Okay. So what happened is the president declared the national emergency. When he declared the national emergency, what was interesting is 1031s were not a part of it. So there was extensions for filing your tax returns and other tax components that were part of that national emergency. 1031s dealt with 1031s. So what ended up happening, they had critical dates. So if the 45-day or the 180th day fell between April 1st and July 15th, you were afforded an extension. So let me put that in normal terms, okay? When somebody is doing an exchange and they close on what we call the relinquished property, the sale property, that starts the time frame for the exchange. They have 45 calendar days from the date of that closing to identify the replacement property or properties that they would like to acquire as a part of the exchange. So what was an issue is that 45 days may not have been enough time because of everything that's going on. So what that means is, for the extensions, is that if somebody closed on their sale, let's just say February 16th, then on February 16th, their identification period would have fallen on April 1st. Because the identification period fell on the critical date, April 1st, it was now extended out to July 15th.
That's
so
a huge
that,
help.
right, so that was a lot of help, right? But the 180th day did not get altered. So even though it might have closed, the 45 days was moved from April 1 to July 15th, the 180th day, which falls on August 14th, remains the same. Okay. If somebody's identification period fell on March 31st, they didn't benefit from the extension. Now the window is starting to close on this, because the 45th day for a closing of May 31st will be July 15th. So as we're seeing, we're getting through May, there's less and less ability for that particular extension. The 180 days was extended mainly if you're closing in January, the beginning of January, then your extension would go to July 15th, the 180th day, but you can't alter the 45-day identification period. So that's sort of the overview of those extensions. Now, there may be some more extensions coming down, because we've asked for some clarification under the IRS Notice 2020-23. But I would say anybody entering into an exchange, don't enter it with the current information that you have. If there's additional extensions, then that's a bonus. So just go in eyes wide open.
That's a great thing to mention too, is they change. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, right? But this is.
Yeah. So, because look how long it took for them to do the exchanges to be a part of the extensions that were granted. It was like almost, it was almost a month. It was a little under a month, but that's how long it took from one to the other. So, there's a lot of other issues that are going on right now. So I'm not sure if 1031s are completely on their radar for trying to help out. But again, go with what you know right now and make your plans accordingly. Any extensions beyond that, and the one thing I would also say is that if you're entering into an exchange and that the extensions are really coming to an end for the beneficial aspects of it, even if you enter into an exchange, at least you're in a position that if there are any additional extensions granted, you may still want to take that opportunity.
Yeah, take advantage if you can, and just learn a little bit more about what's happening.
Yeah.
Awesome. And obviously changes are probably going to happen. So if anybody has any questions about 1031 exchanges, then they can contact and call you, right?
Sure.
I
Happy
know
to
that
accommodate.
you're always available to talk to people and answer their questions. So I'm sure there's a lot of questions out there for people since there's been so many changes, but you just touched on a lot of really important ones. So thank you so much, Dino.
All right.
You're awesome.
Well, thank you.
And I appreciate your time. And yeah, let's make some more exchanges. All
Get some deals.
right. Have a great day, Dino. Thanks
All
so
right,
much.
thank you.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye.